verse 25, my soul cleaves to the dust. Quicken me according to your word. The man of God in this psalm had spoken before of the common and universal benefits of the word, as it agrees to all times and conditions of believers, for it belongs to all, in what state soever they are, to look upon it as a direction and the way to get true happiness, and to stir up suitable affections in their hearts. Now he shows what use the word has in each special condition, especially in the time of great afflictions. David did often change states, but its affections to the word never changes. Here is, first, a representation of David's case. Number 2 is supplication or petition thereupon. The request itself, and his argument to enforce it. First, the representation of David's case. My soul cleaves to the dust. This speech is metaphorical, expressing the depth of his misery, or the greatness of his sorrow and humiliation. The depth of his misery with allusion to the case of a man overcome in battle, or mortally wounded, and tumbling in the dust, or to a man dead and laid in the earth. You have brought me to the dust of death. Psalm 22, verse 15. Sure we are, the expression imports the extremity of distress and danger, either as a man dead or near death, the greatness of his sorrow and humiliation. And so the allusion is taken from a man prostrate and groveling on the ground, which was their posture of humbling themselves before the Lord, or when any great calamity befell them, as when Herod Agrippa died. They put on sackcloth and laid upon the earth, weeping. The same allusion is in Psalm 44, verse 25. Our soul is bowed down to the dust. Our belly cleaves to the earth, suitably to which allusion Septuagint renders it to the pavement. As we read in Theodoret, that Theodosius the emperor, when reproved by Ambrose for the slaughter of Thessalonica, he lay upon the ground and humbly begged pardon, using these words, that in his dejected condition he would lie prostrate at God's feet as a poor supplicant, and die there. The first point is that God's children may have such great afflictions brought upon them that their souls may cleave even to the dust. These afflictions may respect their inward or outward condition. 1. Their inward condition. And so through grief and tears of conscience they are ready to drop into the grave. That trouble of mind is the usual exercise of God's people. See Heman's complaint in Psalm 88 from verse 3 to the end of verse 7. My soul is full of troubles, and my life draws nigh unto the grave. I'm counted with them that go down into the pit. I'm as a man that has no strength, free among the dead, like the slain that lie in the grave, whom you remember no more, and they're cut off from your hand. You have laid me in the lowest pit, in darkness and the deep. Your wrath lies hard upon me, and you have afflicted me with all your waves. It was in his soul, and it was in his soul by reason of the wrath of God, and that in such a degree of vehemency that in his own judgment, and the judgment of others, he cannot expect to be long a man of this world, little differing from the dead, yea, the damned. Psalm 77, verse 1, and so on. I cried unto the Lord with my voice, even unto God with my voice, and he gave ear to me. In the day of my trouble I sought the Lord. My soul ran in the night and ceased not. My soul refused to be comforted. I remembered God, and was troubled. I complained, and my spirit was overwhelmed. Thou holdest mine eyes waking. I am so troubled that I cannot speak. I have considered the days of old, the years of ancient time, and so on. By the sense of God's wrath, he was even wounded to death, and the sore running upon him would admit of no plaster. Yea, the remembrance of God was a trouble to him. I remember God, and was troubled. What a heavy word was that. Soul troubles are the most pressing troubles. A child of God is as a lost man in such a condition. Number 2, in respect to the heavy weight of outward pressures. Thus David fasted, and lay all night upon the earth in his child's sickness, 2 Samuel 12, verse 16 and 17. David therefore besought God for the child. And David fasted, and went in and lay all night upon the earth. And the elders of his house arose, and went to him to raise him up from the earth. But he would not, neither did he eat bread with them. And when he was driven from his palace by Absalom, and was in danger of his life every moment, which some interpreters think to be the case intended in the text, when he went up to the Mount of Olives, barefoot, going and weeping, 2 Samuel 15, verse 30, and David went up by the ascent of Mount Olivet, and wept as he went up, and had his head covered. And he went barefoot, and all the people that was with him covered every man his head, and they went up, weeping as they went. Now the reasons of this are these: 1, to correct him for past sins. This is the cause of David's trouble, and this puts a sting into all miseries. God's children smart under their sins here in the world, as well as others. Proverbs 11, verse 31, Behold, the righteous shall be recompensed in the earth, much more the wicked and the sinner, recompensed in the earth, that is, punished for his sins. Compare with it 1 Peter 4, verse 18, And if the righteous scarcely are saved, where shall the ungodly and the sinner appear? God punishes here that he may spare forever. He gives some remembrance of the evil and corrects his people not to complete their justification, or to make more sure satisfaction for God's justice than Christ has made, yet to promote their sanctification, that is, to make sin bitter to them, and to vindicate the glory of God that he is not partial. For these reasons they are even brought to the dust by their own folly. Number 2, to humble them and bring them low in the midst of their great enjoyments. Therefore he cast them down even to the dust, because we cannot keep our hearts low. Therefore God makes our condition low. This is Paul's case, 2 Corinthians 1, verses 7 to 9. And our hope of you is steadfast, knowing that as you are partakers of the sufferings, so shall you be also of the consolation. For we would not, brethren, have you ignorant of our trouble which came to us in Asia, that we were pressed out of measure, above strength, insomuch that we despaired even of life. But we had the sentence of death in ourselves, that we should not trust in ourselves, but in God which raises the dead, that is, not to build too securely on their own sufficiencies. Number 3, to try their graces, which are never tried to the life, till we be near the point of death. The sincerity of our state and the strength of faith is not discovered upon the throne so much as in the dust, if we can depend upon God in the hardest condition. Number 4, to awaken the spirit of prayer. Out of the depths have I cried to you, O Lord. Psalm 130, verse 1. Affliction puts an edge upon our desires. They that are flat and careless at other times are oftenest then with God. Number 5, to show more of his glory and the riches of his goodness in their recovery. Psalm 71, verses 20 and 21. Thou which hast showed me great and sore trouble shall quicken me again, and shall bring me up again from the depth of the earth. You shall increase my greatness, and comfort me on every side. By the greater humiliation, God prepares us for the greater blessings, as there are multitudes of troubles to humble and try the saints. So his mercies do not come alone, but with great plenty. Application 1. Let us bless God that we are not put to such great trials. How gentle is our exercise compared with David's case. We are weak, and God will not overburden us. There is a great deal of the wisdom and love of God seen in the measure of the cross, and in the nature and kind of it. We have no cause to say our belly cleaves to the dust, or that we are pressed above measure. God gives us only a gentle remembrance. If brought upon our knees, we are not brought upon our faces. If this should be our case, do not count it strange. It is the usual exercise of God's people. Let us therefore not be offended, but approve God's holy and wise dispensation. If there are great troubles, there have been great sins, or there will be great comforts, or for the present there are great graces. As such a dispensation is a correction, there is reason to approve it. If you are laid in the dust, have you not laid God's honor in the dust and trampled his laws underfoot? As it is a trial, you have cause to approve it. For it is but meet that when God has planted grace in the heart, he should prove the strength of it. Therefore, if you are kept so long in your heavy condition that you seem dead, yet if you have faith to keep alive, and patience is exercised, it is for your greater good. Romans 5, verse 3. And not only so, but we glory in tribulation, knowing that tribulation works patience, and his affliction is an exercise for your benefit and spiritual improvement. The husbandman, when he tears and rends the ground up with the plow, it is to make it more fruitful. The longer the metal is in the fire, the more pure it comes forth. Nay, sometimes you have your outward comforts with advantage after trouble, as Job 42, verses 10 to 12. And the Lord turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends. Also the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. And the Lord blessed the latter end of Job more than his beginning. Oh, when we are fitted to enjoy comforts, then we shall have plenty enough. The second point, that in such great and heavy troubles we should deal with God for help. In the dust, David calls to God for quickening. The reasons of this, why in great troubles we should go to God for help, are from the inconvenience of any other course. If the godly should smother their grief and not go to God with it, their sorrow were able to choke them. It is no small ease that we have a God to go to whom we may freely open our minds. Prayer has a certain virtue, as Hannah in 1 Samuel 1 verse 18 prayed to the Lord and wept sore. And mark the event. The woman went her way and ate, and her countenance was no more sad. An oven stopped up as the hunter within, but vent and utterance gives ease to the heart. If it be merely by way of complaint to a friend, without expectation of relief, much more to go to God and lay open our case before him. Number 2, to seek our comfort elsewhere from earthly things is a vain and evil course. First, it is vain, for God is the party with whom we have to do. In many troubles, the creatures may be instruments of our woe, but the principal party is God. Strike in with him and you stop the mischief at the head. Proverbs 16 verse 7. When a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. In other troubles, God has a more immediate hand. Is sickness and tears of conscience. Our business does not lie with the creatures in sickness, nor with physicians first, but with God. In troubles of spirit, we're not to quench our thirst at the next ditch, but to run to the fountain of living water, not to take up with ordinary comforts. That is an attempt to break prison and to get out of the troubles before God lets us out. Is our party then, whoever is the instrument? It is evil that we refuse to come to God when He whips us into His presence and beats us to the throne of grace. Daniel 9 verse 13. All this evil has come upon us. Yet we made our prayer before the Lord our God, that we might turn from our iniquities and understand your truth when men are ready to die, and will not so much as confer with the physician. They are either stupid or desperate. Affliction summoned us into His presence. God sends a tempest after us, is after Jonah. Now the trouble which chases us to God is so far a sanctified trouble.